10:15, or 10:30, 11 o'clock. You know, and God sets in our lives these people that have there for authority, that are able to kind of set down these things for our own good. You know, it may be police officers, it may be, maybe parents, or it may be a wife, because for some reason in this world, God has set women down as the authorities on the position of the toilet seat. Guys, have you noticed this? They have the rules there, the policy. It's always got to be down, right? And we follow that rule, okay, fine, as long as they're home. And they're gone for a week, we disregard it, right? It's all no holds bar. We're in charge now. And that's the way we handle a lot of authority. We evaluate the what. The rules. And sometimes it's small, but sometimes it's big. I've had 2 or 3 drinks, but that rule's for other people who can't handle it. I can handle it, no problem. And we see the outcomes of that. We all are guilty of this, each and every one of us, of not handling authority above us very well. And Scripture lays down a different paradigm than the way we handle it. We look at the what, and Scripture unmasks the twists, if you will, because Scripture says, it's not about what, it's about who. And you might be saying, what in the world is that supposed to mean? It's not the what, it's the who. Well, Romans chapter 13, which we just had read, walks through this in a way. And Apostle Paul is laying out for them, here's what he means. And you got to understand the context of the situation. Paul was writing to a church in Rome, the epicenter of the government of that day that they were underneath of, the Romans. And they are all about the law, okay? Here's the rules, here's the regulations. They had it for everything that was out there. And you got to also understand who was the guy in charge at this day. The ultimate authority in government was a guy named Nero. He was the emperor. And maybe you know a little bit of something about Nero, maybe you don't. If you don't, this guy was a really, really bad dude, all right? He killed a lot of people in his family. He was kind of crazy. At one time, he set a fire somehow to a lot of Rome, blamed it on the Christians. And then he decided, the persecution really started underneath of him. It went as far as he was the guy that would throw Christians into the lion, into the arena with the lions. You may have heard of that. He'd even sometimes would dip them in wax and use them as his torches in his garden. A bad dude, right? And here Paul is writing to this church in Rome, and he says these words about authority, which we just read. He says, everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities. Wait a minute, right? The people, I bet you, they're trying to say, hey, Paul, that's a pretty big blanket statement. Do you realize where we're living right now and who we're living under? I mean, do you realize the rules that they've got set down for us? They're saying you got to do this, you got to do that. And Paul's like, wait, no. It's not about the what, people. It's about the who. The who, what do you mean by it's the who? Well, he lays it out for them. He says this, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. He tells it to him twice. Wait a minute. You're trying to tell me, Paul, that God is the one that established this nut job Nero as the emperor, and we're supposed to submit ourselves to that? And Paul's saying, you know what? And also, let me think about this, God. You're saying God is the one who does this. So the who is really, you're saying that we're supposed to think about when it comes to authorities is God who puts people in authority? No, wait, you must mean God appoints religious rulers, right? Pastors and, bishops and priests, whatever, rabbis. That's what you're talking about, Paul, right, when it comes to authority. And he's like, no, all authorities. The Bible teaches this over and over and over again. And you see it throughout all of the Old Testament and the New Testament of God working through different authorities of different nations. Good people, good nations, bad nations, righteous people, unrighteous people, people who believe and people who did not believe. God worked through all of them as well throughout all of history, which makes us really gotta think a bigger pause here. So you're saying God works not only just in the church, but he works in the world as well for our own good. But wait a minute, the implications of that are huge. Because if that's true, that means if you're saying if I disobey Nero, Paul, they're saying back then, or anybody above me in authority, you're saying really I'm rebelling against the God who put them there? You mean my boss? The rules that are set down in my workplace, my parents? If I don't follow them, God, you're saying, oh, I'm rebelling against God? Isn't that taking it kind of far? Paul says this. Well, consequently, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against God, what God has instituted. And those who do so will bring judgment upon themselves. And right now, all of us are thinking of, wait a minute, okay, what about Hitler? Or I'm not going to do that because of this. Don't you realize this guy, my boss, is the worst, most evil person on the face of the planet, and you saying I got to do everything he says? My parents are weird. They have all these crazy rules for me. You're saying I've got to follow all these rules that my parents are setting down for me? God's saying, yeah, I put them there for you, for your own good. And we're like, that's crazy. Because we want to go through the what of every situation, right? Because why? Because we are, as people, as humankind, we're bent on rebellion. And I mean that in this way. Remember the reading we heard earlier that Tom read for us from Genesis chapter 3? Where Satan is the master twister, very beginning, goes to Eve and says, hey, you know that tree over there? What did God say about that again? And he's like, well, he said, we can eat of every tree, but except for that one, don't eat of it because you'll die. Nah, come on. Is that what God really meant? And what was Satan doing? He's saying, look at the what? And she's like, that's right. Yeah, and I look at that rule. That shouldn't apply to me. Knowledge of good and evil. That sounds great. Adam, you're right here with me. What do you think? Yeah, let's take a bite. And the twist began. And humanity fell into the imprisonment of sin, which at its core is rebellion. And we're bent towards rebellion always on our own. And we see it in our own lives. Everyone here knows we do. And you see in the lives of other people. As a parent, I bet you every parent here would say, why will my child not listen to me? Hey, they're going to go home, your pastor said. Everything I said, you got to do now, all right? And all these kids are like, you got to be kidding me. I hate Pastor Ryan, right? But the thing is, parents, you say that to your kids. Hey, I've got these rules for your good, but how are you with following the authorities above you in front of your kids and showing them respect? We're all guilty, aren't we? You're guilty. I'm guilty of this bent. And there's one overarching principle we need to understand coming out of today. And that's this. Our attitude to human authorities is to be a reflection of our attitude and response to your Father in heaven. Let's read that again. Our attitude to human authorities is to be a reflection of how we respond in our attitude to our Father in heaven. And why is that? Well, we want to first right away think, it's about the what. No, it's not about the what. It's the who. And the who is not just the person there, be they the greatest person on earth or the most evil person ever. It's God behind us saying, I established. And to drive this point home, Paul makes an illustration that really can relate to all of us. He talks about taxes. This is the right time of year to talk about this, right? And he says, well, here. Now remember, there's a context. This is Rome. He's saying, hey, this is all why you pay taxes. For the authorities are God's servants who gave their full time to govern it.